Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to another Pulse of Israel, Israel at War update, not from our ancestral homelands, Jerusalem or the Judean hills, but from Phoenix, Arizona, my little hotel room here. All right, let's give you a little update. And again, I'm going to start with a positive. The Jewish people are strong. The Jewish people, the majority of the Jewish people, not just in Israel, but around the world, we are strong. We know we are up against an evil enemy in the name of social justice, right? Because again, all these protesters around the world and even politicians and university administrators and professors who are allowing the resistance of the evil Arab Muslims in the name of Palestine to get away with brutally murdering, massacring babies, innocent women and children, men, grandparents, right? That's the reality we're dealing with. Israelis and Jews, many Jews have woken up and realized, okay, peace isn't possible with these people. Peace isn't possible with anybody who legitimizes and even celebrates the murdering of innocent Jews. A lot of people have woken up to that. A lot of Israeli Jews have woken up to that, and we all realize we must end this evil against us. Some people still think it's just Hamas, while many of us are waking up and realizing the Palestinian Authority is no different, and the Arab Muslims in Lebanon, Hezbollah, are no different, and there are plenty of Israeli Arab Muslim citizens who are no different. But at least majority all agree that Gaza and Hamas, and there aren't necessarily any innocent civilians in Gaza, because they're the ones who voted for Hamas, they're the ones who celebrated Hamas, who hate and beat the innocent Jews who were taken captive as the Hamas militants, terrorists, took them into Gaza, and some of those innocent civilians took part of the massacre. Okay, so the Jewish people are awake and supporting the IDF and supporting the Jewish state of Israel to end the evil that we're up against. Okay. Now I'm going to take you to the reality of what's going on. Because despite the majority of the Jewish people believing this way, definitely the Jewish people in Israel, and the majority of the committed and connected Jews from around the world to their Jewish identity into Israel, the tiny minority of, I don't know whether to call them, well, I'm not going to give them any names, the tiny minority of politicians, leaders, journalists from the establishment media are demoralizing the people. They're trying to weaken us from within. And I'm going to give you a number of examples. Okay, so example number one, I'm going to go to the politics. Well, even though I have plenty of problems with Benny Gantz, the leader of Blue and White, and I think he would be a horrible prime minister, I do take my hat off and acknowledge that was a great thing that he joined the government in order that there would be a unity government so that the world can see the Jewish people are unified, right and left, on the government structure in fighting this war against this evil. All right? So you got to give credit to Benny Gantz for that. Okay? But then there was his partner in the opposition, Yair Lapid. Well, Yair Lapid did not join the unity government, which also shows how he's off. There's a huge problem with Yair Lapid. But let's give credit where credit is due. At the beginning of the war, Yair Lapid was talking about how there is no opposition or coalition in Israel today. Our enemies, and this I'm quoting him from his own talks, our enemies misunderstood us. They think we're a divided people. No, we are one. We are one people. There's no opposition or coalition. That's how Yair Lapid was speaking in the beginning of the war. Well, today Yair Lapid is speaking a different tune, a much more dangerous tune. Just recently, Yair Lapid, in one of his press conferences or interviews, he's going around talking about it in various interviews and press conferences, saying how basically the time is right now to topple the government and to replace Bibi Netanyahu in the middle of a war. And he actually says, no, there is an opposition and we have to take down this government now and replace Netanyahu now in the middle of a war. So even though Yair Lapid in the beginning was saying our enemies misunderstood us and we're united and there is no opposition, well, now Yair Lapid is showing his true colors, that he represents a divisive, evil aspect within the Jewish people and the Jewish people in Israel, because they really are dividing us. They're a minority. He represents a minority of the Jewish people in the state of Israel. But he clearly is showing our enemies that we're a divided people, and they can take advantage and keep on hitting us and keep on waging war against us and keep on using terror against us because we're not united. He himself, his own words, we're in opposition and we're going to topple this government in the middle of a war. All right? And again, Iran was saying months ago, because they saw the horrific division that Yair Lapid and his other, and again, I'm not trying to be political here, but I want to get, this is what's going on in Israel. I'm dealing with the current events in Israel. I can't ignore it. I'm not trying to be political. I want to be positive and uniting, but I don't want people to be disillusioned. You have to know what's going on the ground. And while the left talks unity, they're the ones dividing. And they make everyone else sound to be as if they're political. I'll give you another example. Benny Gantz, who I was just giving credit for being part of this government, he's always saying, oh, Netanyahu's being political. He said that Oslo was wrong, and we can't go back to Oslo, and we can't let the Palestinian Authority or Hamas have any responsibility in Gaza. So he publicly, in his own public statements, press conferences, basically blamed Netanyahu for going political. And he says, we can't go political, and Netanyahu is doing this. No. Netanyahu was not being political by saying Oslo was wrong and we can't go back the way of Oslo. Netanyahu was being a leader by telling the Jewish people and the world the truth, that Oslo was a disaster, that brought disaster upon us, that unfortunately the political left brought upon us willingly, brought deaths of Israelis and Jews willingly, even though we were warning them, and I was one of the people out in the streets in 1993 protesting how dangerous the Oslo peace process would be, that it would bring about exactly what we've been experiencing for 30 years and even this tragedy today. So Benny Gantz, who publicly is saying, I am the unifier, and it's Netanyahu who's being political, and that's wrong in time of war. No, it was Benny Gantz, by making that statement, who was being political. I mean, the left, they're brilliant at turning things around 180 degrees, misusing language, making people think that they're the better people for actually believing in genocide, right? The social, and this is not just in Israel, this is the left around the world, social justice warriors who believe in human rights and equality, and all of a sudden they're supporting genocide against the Jews. No, that's evil. So no matter how wonderful the words are that they use and making people feel good about themselves for standing up for justice, they support evil. The left supports evil. So here again, we have Benny Gantz being political, which he's blaming Netanyahu for being, when it's not. It's him being the one political, but then the whole establishment media goes, oh, look, it's Netanyahu's being political, and it's Gantz who's the unifier. It's Gantz who's being the right leader. And again, so back to Yair Lapid, this is what's going on. He is being a divider, and he's giving over ammunition to our enemies. Because again, as I was beginning to say, Iran months ago, and this was written up in Al Jazeera, months ago, was saying, oh, the division in Israel led by Yair Lapid and his fellow leftists at the time, the anti-judicial reform, which was really an anti-Israeli government, the divisive campaign, that gave ammunition to our enemies to want to wage war against us because they saw we were weak and divided. And here too, in the middle of the war, Yair Lapid is doing that same exact thing. He was talking the talk beforehand, and now he thinks, because he has United States backing, if not Biden and his administration are whispering in his ear, possibly, telling him, all right, now's the time, bring down the government. So now he's being a divider, like going against what he said initially. That's number one. That's in terms of the politics. Now in terms of the media. All right, I'm going to tell you a little story that I just read. Someone was listening. Israel basically has 4 media channels. Up until just less than a year ago, possibly, there was really only 3 media channels on television. And again, it's regulated in Israel. All right, it's regulated by the government. That's why it always was just those 3 channels. Before that, it was 2 channels. Before that, it was 1 channel. Always government regulated. All right, which means the messaging coming out of those channels was always controlled, whether by the government or then some of them went private, but it was leftist, divisive business interests that were behind owning those channels. So that's what those 3 main channels were about. It was about a narrative that was very demoralizing. very demoralizing. That's the establishment media, and I think Americans in America can understand with me as well, or people in other country. Establishment media is very demoralizing, very unpatriotic, very divisive and demoralizing in their reporting and in the people they bring on, in terms of delegitimizing anyone who comes with a proud patriotic, or in Israel, a Zionist or a proud Jewish perspective about whatever narratives, whatever stories. All right, so this guy's telling the story that he was listening to Channel 14. Channel 14 is the new, proudly Jewish, proudly Israeli, proudly Zionistic, unabashedly politically incorrect in calling out the enemies of Hamas and the Palestinian Authority and the evil of the left over all these years, right? That's Channel 14. He was listening to Channel 14. At the same time, he walked into a hospital and or some office or some doctor's office, and they were listening the big TV, Channel 12, which is one of the demoralizing establishment media channels. In Israel, it's 11, 12, and 13 that are the establishment media. Those are the demoralizing, divisive ones. And then there is Channel 14, thank God we have, which is the patriotic, proud Jewish channel. And again, with each day of the war, the ratings of Channel 14 are going up, and the ratings of the other ones are going down little by little. Not enough, but it's happening. Because little by little, Israelis who've been used to watching 11, 12, 13, and now seeing the demoralization, divisiveness, and the reporting that is totally about giving up to our enemies and giving in to our enemies, little by little, people are stopping to watch that and switching to 14, where it's making them feel better because they're seeing proud, decent, journalistic reporting of the facts, and as proudly propping up the people to feel good about our people and what we're doing and fighting our enemies. So this guy's listening to Channel 14 on his own phone, and then he hears Channel 12, and he senses the difference right there of the difference they're reporting. Channel 12 saying how we have to have a ceasefire, how we have to give in and let our enemy Sinwar, the head of Hamas, feel like he has a victory, and he has to be remained in power, and how horrible our army is and our soldiers are, that the 3 hostages were killed, right? Demoralizing. That's what he was hearing on Channel 12. At the same time, he was hearing reporting about Channel 14 talking about the hostage situation, but yet praising our soldiers in fighting in the most evil situation possible. And I spoke about that in yesterday's program. So go watch that one from yesterday if you want to get a better understanding of that. All right. And Channel 14 was then talking about the huge threats from the massive tunnels that have been found to be underneath Gaza. They just found by accident, which is crazy that our intelligence didn't know about it, a huge tunnel that cars can drive through to bring in whatever they want. Thank God the IDF found this tunnel, and now they're not imagining, they are making the very calculated assumption that there are more highway-like tunnels like that under Gaza that would have potentially allowed them to come into Israel and create more damage and more terror and kill more people. All right? So Channel 14 was reporting upon that. Channel 12 was not. And yet, Channel 12 is all about demoralizing. That's what we're dealing with. So we have Israelis listening to this demoralizing news, and they're the ones thinking, oh my God, we're going to lose. Bibi's horrible. Bibi's a divider. Bibi's responsible for this. The government has to fall, and we have to give in to Hamas, and we have to give everything possible to get our hostages back. Those are the message of the demoralizing establishment media of channels 11, 12, 13, and the army radio stations and establishment radio stations. There was actually a commander in the army who wrote a really stinging letter to the army radio station saying, you guys are demoralizing the soldiers. Start reporting about A, B, C, D, and E and boost up the morale of the soldiers. You're reporting, because it's establishment media, it's run by the left, the divisive, demoralizing, anti-Jewish Israel left. That's Israeli army radio, and they're pushing out those same divisive, demoralizing messages as the television stations. And he wrote a really harsh letter to the army radio station, and that was publicized. This is what we are dealing with in this country. And then go even further. What's going on is, again, I know why this massacre happened. I was screaming about it back in 1993 when I was warning against Oslo. Well, the establishment media, they're not dealing with Oslo. They're not dealing with the horrific diplomatic and foreign policy decisions of Shimon Peres, Yitzhak Rabin, and all the leftist governments over the years. And what are they focusing on? They go, oh, Bibi Netanyahu is at fault. He also supported Oslo, so you can't focus it on Oslo because Netanyahu also supported on Oslo. Folks, Netanyahu did not support Oslo. I was in the streets with Netanyahu because he was in the opposition in 1993 protesting against Oslo. And recently a video was found of him talking about fighting against the Oslo process, that it shouldn't be voted upon by the government at the time. And he said explicitly, Oslo, it's Jewish Israelis who are willingly giving away our land that will endanger our lives. Not because of pressure, not because of diplomatic international things. They seriously believe that living in this area with enemies all around us and giving away our land and giving guns to terrorists will bring peace. And they willingly want to give away our land. And he goes, why am I so vocal? And there's this video in Hebrew. I'll put English subtitles and put it out there. Why am I fighting it? Because I care about our lives. That's Bibi Netanyahu in 1992 or 1993. And yet today the establishment media is saying, oh no, Bibi's at fault and it's not about Oslo because Bibi also supported Oslo. No! No, they are lying and creating and giving out misinformation to the public in order to ignore the real causes of this tragedy that we experienced. And it's because the horrific, evil foreign policies of the left that believed giving away our land and giving guns to terrorists who talk every single day about killing us, that ignoring that and just willingly giving our land to them, that's going to bring peace. It is the destructive anti-Jewish Israeli left that is responsible for the tragedy we just experienced on October 7th. Period. And the establishment media is ignoring that. This is the reality that we are dealing with today. So now you're going to say, okay, well, if Bibi was against Oslo, well, why didn't he stop it? Right? He was against it in 1993. He was against it. Well, he came into power in 1996, and believe it or not, I was one of the people who voted for him and the Likud in order for the Likud to stop Oslo. Well, he's gone on record basically saying he couldn't stop Oslo because it was an international agreement and governments can't go against international agreements. And even though I'd like to say that's poppycock and he should have done it anyway, Israel's not America. Trump stopped an agreement with Iran. If Israel would have stopped an agreement that, again, was signed on the White House lawn and with international signature guarantees of the international community and the United Nations, etc., 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 Israel would have been slaughtered. All right, if Netanyahu would have said Oslo is gone, Israel would have been slaughtered. On the diplomatic arena, on the United Nations, without support, who knows? I still wish we would have leadership that would have done that, but I'm going into the real politic of it. But everyone has to pay attention to this. Netanyahu is the one leader, the one prime minister of Israel, who, while he had to officially abide by the Oslo Accords and he met Arafat and he continued making agreements with Arafat in a sense, but those were agreements that were forced upon him by America. He didn't want to do the Y agreement. He knew he had to do the Y agreement, and he made it as weak as possible with giving away as least amount of land as possible. I know some people are going to attack me. No, Netanyahu gave away Hebron and he's responsible. Yes, Netanyahu was prime minister signing the Y agreement that gave Hebron away to the Palestinian Authority. He shouldn't have done that. But I also know from a geopolitical perspective that the United States at the time would have slaughtered Netanyahu had he not agreed to the Y agreement. And Netanyahu, what he did was he minimized it as much as possible so that it would do as little damage as possible. So yes, he has his signature on a lot of the damage that has been done because of the Oslo Accords. But that's because, one, he couldn't stop the Oslo Accords. At least he believes on a geopolitical level it would be suicide for Israel to do that. And two, he is the only prime minister to have minimized the damage of the Oslo Accords and who has stopped the establishment of a Palestinian state. Because if Netanyahu would not have been in power doing what he did diplomatically to stop it, especially under the Obama administration, Israel would have been forced to give away all of Judea and Samaria, and there would have been a Palestinian state years ago. So it's thanks to Netanyahu, and this will go down in the history books, it's thanks to Netanyahu that there's no Palestinian state, and that we're still living and growing, even though at a slow pace in Judea and Samaria. That is the reality of the situation. Know the reality, know the context, know your facts. And again, I'm going to end on the positive. The Jewish people are strong. All right? We're strong. We're the more so the Jewish people in the land of Israel know we have to end this battle. We have to end the evil. We're not going to allow a Palestinian state. We're not going to give away any more land. We have to be in Gaza forever with more Jews with each day, understanding we have to be living there, not just the army being there. And we're going to have peace in the future thanks to the strong Jewish spirit, the strong King David spirit that exists today in the Jewish people, regardless of religious level, religious, ultra-Orthodox, traditional, even some secular. We're all coming together, and we're stronger than the divisive, demoralizing political left and establishment media. So keep your heads held up high and stick with me for the proper context and for the politically incorrect truth about Israel, the Jewish people, and the freedom-loving world. If you are not yet a subscriber to my Pulse of Israel videos, go to pulseofisrael.com and click to subscribe. And if you like these videos and want to help us get them seen by many more people, just click on the donate button on pulseofisrael.com so we can get this true information about the reality the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel is experiencing today that is not being reported upon properly in the establishment media, not just in Israel, but around the world and even in the Jewish media. Click on the donate button. Help us grow and reach many more people. We need your help. Shalom, running off to Turning Point. Have an amazing day, everyone.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.